University of Science and Technology, Professor Rafał Veron, Professor Anna Kowalska-Pizalska, Professor Katarzyna Schneid-Veron, Professor Yash Chavla. It was Dr. Murli Raman, Deputy Vice Chancellor from Asia Pacific University, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. It appears, sure. Well, today we will having 3 keynote speaker sessions, 15 minutes each. After that, you will be having the opportunity for a question and answer round for 5 minutes each. So this would be a session for 1 hour. So first of all, I would like to call upon the stage Professor Rafał Veron. Before that, I would like to read his brief introduction. Professor Rafał Veron is a professor of management science, rector's proxy for the evaluation of quality of science activity, and head of Department of Operations, Research and Business Intelligence at Warsaw University of Science and Technology. He is a member of the Polish Academy of Sciences, Academia Europea, Academy of Europe, the Statistics and Econometrics Committee on the Polish Academy of Sciences, and the International Institute of Forecasters. He serves on the editorial boards of several journals, including the top-tier international journals on forecasting. Over the last 20 years, Rafał has built an impressive international reputation in energy forecasting. His other research interests include agent-based modeling and simulation, complex systems, computational economics, computational statistics and machine learning, financial engineering and risk management, stochastic modeling, and time series analysis. With 5,000 plus Scopus index citations without auto citations, and H-index of 40 plus, he ranks high on the list of top 2% most widely cited scientists in the world. I welcome Rafał on the stage, please.
Thanks for the introduction. I have to speak. Okay. Do you have a mic? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, how it works. Okay. Okay. Thanks for the introduction. And where's the pointer? And there's the pointer. Yes, perfect. Everything I have. I need everything I I have everything I need. Not I need everything I have. Alright, guys. I don't know what the title was announced. Actually, I checked at the webpage, but I didn't see it. So this is a title because I'm going to talk about forecasting electricity prices. So first, I have to explain what are markets for electricity. So the next few slides will be about the markets themselves. Then I'll move on to describing the methods that are used to forecast those prices. I won't discuss this first slide because some of you have heard it too many times. So let's just move it. Oh, okay. So what is here? This plot here is the price of electricity. So it is valid for today for the 96 load period, so 15-minute periods of today. So you divide every day, this is pricing in India. So you divide the day into 96 intervals of 15 minutes each. You trade for each of those intervals. You submit bids and buy and supply bids, and you aggregate them. The intersection gives you the price. So what we see here is something quite common in many markets. We see that. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. There's a morning peak. Typically in the morning, there's a higher consumption of electricity, which translates into higher prices for electricity. Then in the midday, usually the consumption is lower, the prices are lower, and in the evening again, prices jump. Now, of course, this is not just because we are using so much electricity during the day, I mean in the morning and in the evening, but also because some of very cheap electricity comes in the middle. And this what it comes in the middle is the solar power. So when you have solar power, the sun shines in the middle of the day, then you have a lot of generation of solar electricity, and you do not need to generate it from other sources like fossil fuels, like coal, oil, gas, depending on the country. Now this kind of structure, so you see here is exactly data for India. There's a price cap of 12,000 rupees per megawatt hour. So the unit basic group unit of trading is megawatt hour. Here you see the 96 different intervals. In Europe and in many parts of the world, a slightly more common structure is a structure of 24 trading intervals. So we have, for each hour, we have a separate auction. And we obtain, so like today in the morning, and in almost every country where you have this kind of electricity trading, in the morning you submit your bids to the exchange. Around noon, this depends a bit between the countries. Around noon, all of them are aggregated, all the volume, transaction volumes and prices are set, and you already around noon know everything about the next day. So this is how this trading is conducted. So every day you do either 24 like in most European countries or 96 like in India, separate auctions for delivery of electricity for the next day. And this type of data, although depending again on the country, on the market, not always this is the most trading is not necessarily done through this day-ahead market. However, it is almost always the reference point. So any transactions in the market, or also bilateral, they are made with the knowledge of the day-ahead price. This is exactly, I was trying to, almost like a perfect fit. So I was expecting a slight delay and put here the bidding curves for hour 15. So for the block, which starts in hour 15 and ends 15 minutes later. So it's at 4 minutes too early, but okay, not bad forecasting. So what you see here, you have the aggregated buy orders. This is the blue curve. The red is the aggregated sell orders. So this, all participants submit their bids. Some say, okay, I'll buy this much at this price, I'll buy this much at this price, and so on. Now the intersection gives you the volume. This is the volume here on this x-axis, and this is the price for hour 15 today. But this was actually established yesterday. Okay, now this is how the market works. This is how the day-ahead market works, and electricity markets work around the world essentially. Now, we meaning academics and practitioners who are working in companies taking part in this market, participating in this market, for them it's important to forecast, to predict the next day's price, because then they can structure the bids in such a way to optimize their profits. This is the main idea behind the story. Now, I'll tell you a few things about the evolution of models, then talk a bit about probabilistic forecasting, as this is one of the new avenues that is attractive, and people are talking and discussing it, and not only in energy forecasting, but also in other areas of forecasting. So when you think about this is essentially, we are working with time series models. So this is time series, so each observation has a timestamp. It's very regular. It can be, let's say, 1 hour, every 1 hour you have one point, or you can have every 15 minutes, or every 5 minutes like in Australia. So depending on the market, you might have slight deviations of how these markets work. But in general, you can think of it as a univariate series, like this one, just one day after the other. So here the vertical lines are just indicating the days, individual days. This is from one of the European markets, the price of one of the European markets. So there's also a morning peak and an afternoon peak. Or you can think it in a multivariate setting, and this is actually more common, that you think of it as each load period is a separate series. You build a model, a separate model for each of the series. Now you can take, I'm doing a mess for you those guys, right? You're trying to follow me. Okay, I'll try to stay on this side of the stage, sorry for that. Okay, so you can think of this as a series of 24 or 96, for instance, in India, separate series. Of course, there are some relations between them, but still you typically develop a model separate for each of those. You can also think of it as curves in a functional space. I don't know if you had functional analysis in your course, but you can think of an evolution of the whole curve. So you can think that the object is on the point, but a curve, and this curve evolves in time. So this is another approach that can be used in this context. However, this is the most typical setup, the multivariate setup. You have a separate model for each hour of it. Okay, let's look at the models. One of the simplest models is an autoregressive or a regression model, essentially. So the regression model has the following components. So if we want to model the price on day D and hour H, or load period H, we typically take past prices from the same hour, so H is the same here, as you can see, but day is different. Day D minus 1, D minus 2, minus 7, so like yesterday, 2 days ago, a week ago. Those are typically the most important regressors in this setup. Betas are the coefficients. You may have some exogenous variables. Typically what you use is the load forecast, or demand for electricity for the next day forecast. You also have some, quite often weekday dummies or some other form of seasonality, which takes into account that this data set over a period of a week is seasonal. I mean, there's different behavior on the weekends, different on the weekdays. So this is the typical setup. Now you can just rewrite it slightly differently or illustrate it differently. So here's the same regression model, but written more or displayed more as a, some noise here, okay. You can display it as a just a kind of a network where you have inputs. These are the regressors, these are the variables on this side here, these guys here, all of these guys here. Now they're just displayed as boxes on this, on the left. And the forecast is made for PDA, so price on day D, hour H. This is a linear setup. This model here, this regression model is a linear model, linear in the regressors. Now, you can have a nonlinear structure, and the simplest way to do it is to use a neural net. So you have a hidden layer of neurons. So all these inputs go into the neurons, they are aggregated, they perhaps are transformed in a nonlinear fashion, and then passed on to the next potential layer or just to the output layer. So the difference between this, a simple regression, this is a linear model, this is a nonlinear model. The nonlinear model has the advantage of the ability to model dependencies which are not linear, as the name essentially says. So it's definitely more general, however it's much harder to calibrate, estimate the model. If you are into, would like to read about the evolution of models, this page actually is the first page of our article, kind of a general popular article about forecasting electricity prices. I posted a link on LinkedIn actually a few days ago, so you can just go there, click on it, and download the article, have a look at it. Now, the next step in the evolution of models is to use regularization, meaning you have a model with many inputs. So again, here you can have these gray boxes now identify or represent variables which are not necessarily for this hour of the day. So not necessarily for hour H, but maybe all 24 hours of the day. Now, the approach when you use regularization, what it does, it first of all typically shrinks the coefficient, the betas that we have seen here, these betas, shrinks them towards 0, so they're small. And in some cases, when you use, for instance, LASSO, the least absolute shrinking selection operator, it shrinks some of them to 0, thus possibly eliminating some of the coefficients. Now here is from a big model, you may, I mean, from let's say with hundreds or thousands of regressors, you may end up with a model that has, let's say, 20 the most relevant ones. But a priori, before making the forecast, before making this analysis, it's relatively hard to guess which, even if you are an expert in this field, hard to guess which really regressors are the most important ones. So this is kind of it's called a statistical learning, sometimes some people say it's machine learning, also technique. So LASSO here, it just allows you to, what is the difference? Essentially, the difference is that instead of only minimizing the residual sum of squares, so the squared differences between the model values and the observations, you additionally have a penalty here. This penalty is just the absolute value, so sum of the absolute values of the betas, of the coefficients, to the power of 1, this q can be 1 here in this case, with some parameter. So depending on this lambda, you either eliminate only a few regressors or you eliminate almost all regressors. Now, looking at the magnifying part of this plot, I took the middle part, and here you can see, you can also use this technique to identify which regressors, which experimental variables are really important. So here you have today's predicted prices on the x-axis, yesterday's load forecast for today, so one of the exogenous variables that is important for price forecasting is here. And first of all, the greener the box is here, the more often this variable is important. the more dark, the black boxes essentially like here, it's almost never used in the model. So what was, I mean, kind of expected before we did this analysis, that the diagonal will be more or less green. The diagonal meaning that the same, if you want to forecast, let's say, the price at our 9 a.m., we need the load forecast for 9 a.m. This is the diagonal. What came as a surprise is that morning hours, some of the morning hours like here is 7, 8, 9, and also some evening hours like 23, 22, 23, 24, so the last 3 hours of the day, they also tend to be important for many of the models, for many hourly models. So this is something you get out of this analysis, so it can help you build simpler models, but it's a kind of an automated procedure which does it by itself, more or less. Okay, you can move on with the models, and you can use neural nets, which are of course much more general in this context. And one of the advantages in this in space forecasting is that you can have many outputs. Now, some of you may say that, okay, we've used regression models, and you can have a regression model with also many outputs, so-called vector autoregressive models. But they do not work with this data. They just give poor predictions. Many people have tried it and it doesn't work. However, neural nets are able to do it. So you have some inputs, you have some hidden layer, perhaps you have more than one hidden layer, but you can at the same time predict the 24 values, the 96 values. Now this has the advantage that you have a consistency for the whole day for the forecast. Because if you do it with one output only, you can have some fluctuations due to the problem with estimating your models. So neural nets provide a potentially much better fit. Now, it is not so obvious that if you run some ready software with default parameters that you will get anything better than in the regression model. Actually, this is typically not the case. So you have really to fine-tune to find the right hyperparameters of your model to do it right. Okay, now let me move on to the second topic I wanted to mention today. And the second one is about probabilistic forecast. Now, how many of you have heard about probabilistic forecasts? Raise your hand. You have heard it, oh, of course, you've heard it already a few times from me. Okay, so a probabilistic forecast, oh, here's a nice illustration, is a forecast where the output is a probability distribution. It can be the whole functional form, like in this plot here, you say, okay, you are here at time t0, and for time t1, you want this whole red curve. You want to predict it. Instead of just predicting, let's say that this white bar here is the mean value. This is typically what you do is a point prediction when you're predicting, let's say, saying, okay, tomorrow's temperature at noon will be, I don't know, 33 degrees Celsius. This is a point prediction. Now, a probabilistic prediction includes the probability of something happening. So let's say you can say tomorrow, with 90% probability, tomorrow at noon, the temperature will be between 32 and 34 degrees Celsius. This is already a probabilistic forecast. So prediction intervals, or all percentiles, or in the limit, the whole curve. This is something that is the object of probabilistic forecasting. Now, why are we interested in probabilistic forecasting? Well, first of all, it's a nice research. Not too many people have done it, so if you write a paper on this topic, then it can get published. But in practice, actually, you can show that using probabilistic forecast, you can provide a better strategy and more efficient in a way, utilizing your resources. So it leads to higher profits, or you can minimize losses depending on the position you are thinking in the market. So this is something people have done for for some time, and this in energy forecasting, this is, let's say, the last 10 years, people have been talking about this probabilistic forecasting as this is where we should focus now. Among the different models that you can use for probabilistic forecast, a very nice example is something which is called, or we called it, but actually it has different names. You can call it the distributional neural net. A distributional neural net is again a neural net, but where the outputs here, in this purple, the distribution layer, the network outputs the parameters of a parametric distribution. If it's, for instance, if it's Gaussian, then it would output the mu and the sigma of the Gaussian distribution. Now, Having that output, you have the full continuous distribution. And this actually works quite well. This was a surprise for us. So some of the things we do, when you do research, sometimes some things are expected, some things you expect and don't happen, sometimes you don't expect something and it happens. Now this is the example. So we didn't expect it to perform so well. Here's in terms of one of the measures of probabilistic forecast, the so-called CRPS, continuous rank probability score, we can improve by something between 15 and 20% depending on the distribution, either the Gaussian, the normal, or the JSU is a 4-parameter distribution. You can improve against a kind of a benchmark like the one I've shown you, the Lasso estimated benchmark. So this is a lot. I mean, 20% is a lot in forecasting. Typically what you do, you get 1-2%, this is something interesting. So this is really low. But this is not what shocked us. I mean, we expected that in terms of probabilistic forecast, this model will actually be much better than other models. But if you look at point for, so this CRPS is just this in the table that was shown in the previous slide. But looking also at the mean absolute error and a bit to the mean squared error, root mean squared error, you also see that these distributional neural nets, especially when you have this JSU, the 4-parameter distribution with heavy tails and skewness, they are also the best in terms of point forecast. Now this is something unexpected, was unexpected for us. So these techniques can be useful. However, it takes time to compute them. It takes time to calibrate them, and to find the right set of hybrid parameters is really this is the most difficult part actually. Okay, so today you showed it too. Okay. So I've covered the topics, the following topics essentially. Just gave a brief introduction to what is electricity trading about. Now, then I have said a few things about the basic models that are used in this context, starting from regression models over simple neural nets, deep neural nets with multiple outputs, to distributional neural nets. So this is kind of an avenue that we have followed over the last 25 years in this area. And right now we are working with the models I've shown you in the last slide. Now, if this is of interest to you, then you are very welcome to have a look at my webpage. This is the webpage here, but actually you just type in my name without spelling errors, and then it's a relatively unique name, easy to find it in my webpage. You can log in there, all of my papers are there. Sometimes also some toolboxes we have developed are there, or links to them. So you can access them, you can have a look at them. If you have any questions, write to me, and if you have any ideas for joint research, also use this opportunity. I also have, I'm running a few projects at the moment. In one of them, I have two postdoc positions. One was just filled last month, but I still have one more postdoc position, a 1-year postdoc position. So if any one of you is interested in a postdoc position, then please let me know, and I'll tell you what are the chances of you getting it actually. So that's all from my side. I didn't want to take more time. Yash was very strict on this. He said no way I'll turn off the mic if you exceed 15 minutes, and I didn't really. Well, not really exceed it. Okay, thank you very much. If you have any questions, of course, I'm happy to take them. If not, then of course, please contact me by email and I can explain some things later. Okay, no questions. So, the microphone.
Thank you, Dr. Rafal. Next session goes with Dr. Murli. So I would like to read his brief profile. Dr. Murli Raman is the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Asia Pacific University, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. He's an experienced professor with a demonstrated history of working in the higher education industry. He's skilled in design thinking, digital leadership, and mindset change. He's a trainer and coach for corporations in Malaysia. He is certified in design thinking by Stanford DE School, certified NLP practitioner also. He has solid research achievements with numerous research accolades which have been conferred upon him. Some of them are World Innovation Award from Korea, National Outstanding Award for Education Leadership and Gold Medalist for PECI PTA 2013. He has published more than 85 papers in international journals and conferences. He is an invited speaker at conferences and seminars on digital business transformation. A Rhodes Scholar and a Fulbright Fellow with academic qualification from London School of Economics, Imperial College of Claremont Graduate University, USA. He has demonstrated his academic leadership for various positions, including Dean of Faculty and Director of Business School. Apart from being an avid design thinker, I would like to invite Dr. Murali Raman on this stage for his keynote address.
Thank you so much. Let me try and get my slides up. Yash, don't start the count yet. After listening to a top 2 scientists in the world, you feel very small, so I'm not sure what to present. Why? Thank you. So I was sharing with some of my colleagues yesterday, my role at the university now as a Deputy Vice Chancellor is surely but surely removing me from hardcore research, because you're getting more into administration. However, even my design thinking work with Stanford University, which still continues, a lot of my time is actually spent working on young startup companies, helping companies transform digitally to allow them to come up with innovative solutions. So my presentation would not be so much focused on research, but more looking at business intelligence in its context of design thinking based on my experience and ongoing projects, which I will share shortly. Yeah? And I have 14 minutes and 30 seconds left to do this. So 7 points actually prepared for 1 hour, but I'll deliver in 15 minutes. 7 talking points, the points are there. I'll come back to each one of it when they're subheaders. This is the university where I belong to. The first one, we're looking at something called the VUCA world. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about this acronym called the VUCA. We're leaving the VUCA world now. What's actually the VUCA world? This is a normal graph from a ECG. So if you're on a treadmill, they put you on a stress test, you come out with this reading, you're fine, you're healthy. For people like me, after I'm 52 this year, so if my heart rate is like this, each time after I go for a walk or a run, I'm fine. It's a normal world. The world was like this before, highly predictable. Today we live in this sort of world. So the heart, ischemic heart reading is very erratic. The world that we live in today is VUCA for this, like this. When we say VUCA, it's highly volatile, right? So what exactly is VUCA? Volatility, uncertainty, complex, and ambiguity, which at that backdrop justifies the need for more research in business intelligence. Yeah. So that justifies, just to set that backdrop, what is actually causing the world to become more ambiguous and more complex and more uncertain and more volatile? There are a few push factors. And research has shown this for the last few years. But some of the big items that's causing the world to become more VUCA are as follows. The virus which hit the world 3 years ago, this is one. It's really disturbing a lot of things. Yeah? The world is not stable yet, including supply chain shocks as we have. US and China trade tensions is still not ending. So for countries like Malaysia, I was talking to Professor yesterday, it puts us in a very difficult position. The local SME startup companies find it very difficult because we are a major exporter of products, yeah, from commodities all the way to machinery to manufacturing products to some of these great economies, and being 11th trading partner of US and also second largest trading partner of China. When they are in trouble, we are in trouble as well. So that again puts some shock in terms of the economic outlook. Professor from Egypt presented yesterday, climate change is another shock. So we were talking about carbon emissions, we're talking about carbon footprinting, we're talking about making it mandatory for companies to report this on a regular basis. It puts more pressure on corporate thinkers and corporate leaders. Fukushima 2011, the Japan incident really iterates that natural disasters are here to stay, and it's intensifying massively. Look at what happened to Turkey not so long ago, yeah, just a few weeks ago. Immense shock to businesses around the world as well. Again, from a trading perspective with Turkey and Syria. Unstable geopolitical situations in Europe, so one of the most stable regions over the last couple of decades, but now again puts some pressure and makes the world a lot more VUCA for all of us. This is from a research paper that I took from NIET as part of a collaborative work with them. So if you look at this, is something called the digital vortex. So industries that are closer to the epicenter are subject to digital disruption. They're also the disturbers and they're also disruptors. So if you look at that, number one, technology is right in the middle, which means whatever technologies that they're creating might not even last for the next 5 years, yeah, because they themselves disturb themselves. So they are disrupting their own businesses. When you look at other sectors that are there, they're getting closer and closer to the epicenter of the digital transformation and digital disruption, including the likes of education, which is rated number, let me look at this, why am I looking at the screen? Education is number 6. So which means we are subject to the threat of being disturbed. So would a professor be required 10 years from now, or will be replaced by, would this conference be delivered by an artificial intelligence? Yeah, probably, but not. I don't think so. You still need to have the human connectivity, but the issues in which complex problems are solved is becoming a lot more advanced as we speak. So from VUCA, we have this concept called the VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complex, and digitally disturbed environment and world. Yeah? So that backdrop, and these are all business models that I won't go through them. We know there are numerous business models that have taken the world by storm. One of this is DG Bank in India, so you can open a banking app, a savings account in 90 seconds. You have Sachin Tendulkar, and they use the logo of a dinosaur to say that, look, we are a big bank in Singapore called DBS, the largest banking corporation in Singapore. They decided to open a branch in India and extend their business to transform digitally and launch DG Bank, which is doing really well. And they did not launch it. Piyush Gupta, CEO, did not launch it in Singapore for a reason, because monetary authority of Singapore is quite strict. The authentication mechanism had to be more advanced and so on. They were not ready in Singapore, but India was. And they were doing very well. Now they're expanding to Indonesia and other markets that are more favorable. So again, it tells you that we need to think off the cuff, we need to think off the feet, and we need to think very innovatively to address some of these innovations. Is this real metaverse? Is it here to stay, or is it another passing fact? How is it affecting the level of decision making for companies as well? This is a talking plant project in Indonesia. I had the opportunity of working with an Indonesian friend and colleague who looks at how you look at IoT for farming purposes. So again, applying farming, applying sensing technology to sort of improve yields of plantations. Yeah. So again, some money has been allocated for even some of the projects that we are involved in to actually help farming communities to make more sense of agriculture by integrating IoT and sensor technology. So this project, if you want to read more, it's called Habibi Garden Project in Indonesia. It's called the Talking Plants Project. The plant actually doesn't talk, but the soil senses the data and senses the climate, which makes the farmer to take certain precautionary action to ensure that the crops produce the yield as expected. So why does the world need business intelligence given the VUCA-ness? Past events are no longer a good predictor, as I mentioned. Simultaneous shocks in the pastoral forces. What are pastoral? Political, social, economic, environment, and legislative forces are moving very, very fast. Simultaneous shock, intensification of competition, emergence of new business models driven by the internet component technology. So these are all push factors. Man-made machines have also become more intelligent than the creator. I'm sure some of you have watched the movie Robo, right? So you look at the robot itself is challenging the master. So in that context, and technology is becoming more affordable. So as a result of that, the threats forces hence the need to push for more intelligence in businesses, and the availability of technology is there to help us address some of these issues. Yeah, terminologies are quickly, I will not go through this in interest of time. Early days of business intelligence. Business intelligence, if you look at the history and the literature of BI, it has been there for some time. So let me take you, go back to the times of 1980. Some of you were not born, some of you, like me, were there. There was our prime. Those sitting in front, I believe we are in the 80s category. We listened to that era of music and so on. In 1980, it was a very powerful company, still is, it's called Coca-Cola. How many of you have not heard of this company? They had $1 million question. The CEO of Coke wanted to know in 1983, who is a Coca-holic? And Coca-holic is defined by someone who must have at least one can of soda. In the US, they call it one can of Coke a day. And they did not have the answer. So they said, let's embark on this project called Snacks 24, and let's get some intelligence from the business. Very simple. But at that time, there was no data. How do you get data? So they went back to 101 of information systems. And they said, look, let's go and work with partners, the Kmarts, the Walmarts, and more than 1,800 outlets that were selling the Coke product, install simple point of sale systems called transactional processing systems, map that to a management information system which produces reports, give every customer that buys Coke a Coke card. Each time you swipe, we give you a discount. On one condition, the data belongs to me. So those days, there was no personal private data protection and so on. People were willingly giving away these cards. They were acquiring the cards for purpose of discounts, and they gathered the data. And the data showed, after about 6 months of collection, 85% were aged between 24 and 35, consumers of Coke. Bad news for Coke, because the body cannot process sugar as much as I hoped for. So one gulab jamun is more than enough for a 52-year-old. My son can probably have 3 because he's 19, right? So he has more power from an insulin perspective. The pancreatic function is stronger. Coke realized that. So what would you do with that data? Coke did a couple of things. They introduced something called Coke for Life with that data. So although many people saw the data collection process, why is Coca-Cola doing this? Yeah, what for? Why do they need this data? Early days of business intelligence. Yeah? So they launched Coke for Life, Diet Coke, Coke Zero, and so on. And while Coke was doing this, its nemesis or closest competitor is Pepsi. What was Pepsi doing? Pepsi said, Coke, you can do it, I can do it too. So they did the same thing, installed point of sale systems, free cards for Pepsi consumers, data is mine, analyze the data. Their statistics was about 24, they're 13 to 24 years old, almost 90% of the market share. Clearly, they were competing in the teenage market. Right? What would you do if you had the data? Pepsi did a couple of things. It was 1984, Michael Jackson won 9 Grammy Awards, they used him as a product ambassador. Till this very day, the ambassadorship is a very strategic move by Pepsi around the world. So from using Michael Jackson, because everybody who was following Michael Jackson was also holding a can of Pepsi in their hand to model the icon, yeah? So in that sense, from Michael Jackson, replaced by Britney Spears, she got into teenage pregnancy, bad news for Pepsi, announced her, and replaced Britney with David Beckham. So again, the selection of product ambassadorship, the selection of a campaign, a marketing campaign, the selection of any single design of a product comes from data. And the point is, and as I advise many companies in Malaysia, SMEs, and even in Indonesia, and in Middle East as well, where I visit once a year, while they have data analytics and data tools to sort of predict the future, many of them miss a very interesting point. Where's the business case for this? What's the strategy of data here? How are we using data as oil to fuel the strategy forward? So that's what we need to look at. These are more cases, I shall not go. So obviously, data analytics have become more robust, yeah, and shapes business strategy making. So today, there's one video, again, I don't have time here. If you look at Burger King strategy, so they are mining municipality data, mapping it to traffic conditions, and they're delivering burgers to you while you're on the road. Delhi traffic might work. Yeah. So really, it's about technology is advancing so much. We're again making the business case. You could actually Google Burger King burger to your car. It's on YouTube. Probably about 5 minutes. Shall not show this video. Now, core technologies in the BI space. Again, all of you are experts here. Just to look at some of the top 10 technologies we have: SAS, QuickView, BOT, Splunk, and what we are advising our students to do is to challenge some of these tools out there from an application perspective. That's where design thinking actually comes in. How can you mine better? How can you predict better? That's where the work by Professor and all that is very, very advanced, and we really look up to people like that to sort of add value to the work that the younger generation is doing in terms of modeling perspective, right? Now, last, I would end with some of the key points, and this would be my advice to most companies as I work with them from a consulting perspective. So if you're thinking of business intelligence and how you want to implement this, 5 simple points to consider. Point 1, always look at technology as a simultaneous model. So never look at technology in isolation. Strategy is always at the heart. What are you going to do with this? How is your output going to be useful from a strategic perspective, right? So in that context, keep strategy in the middle. Organization structure is key. Technology drives that structure, links to the task, and links to people. Guess what? MIT recently produced an article, I think about 2 months ago, and they said that the biggest challenge of technology is not technology but mindset. That's the most complex thing to fix. Because human beings are very complex animals. We are very complex. We tend to agree, disagree, and we can agree to disagree on certain things. And from a cultural transformation perspective, there is one thing that requires more research to understand the human mindset really, really well, how it works. That's where things like cyber psychology is coming into place now as well. That's the first point. So looking at simultaneous change, holistic view of digital transformation, and especially if you're looking at business intelligence. Number 2, This is a model that I created and using for startup companies in Malaysia. And what we see, it's called a phased approach of digital transformation. So looking at maturity assessment. So where are we in the scale of transformation and what's the role of data there? So these are all tools that people have created, but we need to know how to use it. 10 years ago, they weren't there, but today there's so many tools, just plug and play and it's there. Once we know how we are in the assessment of maturity, we move into strategic envisioning or the transformative agenda. Then we prioritize projects, and in the end, we do a reassessment of are the initiatives that we're implementing, does it actually make sense? Third point, consider a design. I use the word consider. Design thinking might not work for every single company. It worked for companies like Airbnb, it worked for Telecom Malaysia, it worked for many companies that I've advised, because they've embedded that as part of their DNA. So there are a number of possibilities in terms of iterating a new prototype and actually launching it out as a new product. Yeah? But you can consider, and at the heart of it, at the heart of data collection here is the first phase called empathy. And when we look at empathy, all the cases that I went through, the last 14 minutes or so, starts by understanding who your user is, who is your end user, who is your consumer of the product, or who is the consumer of your technology. In that sense, once you know that, you will be able to do things very accurately. Now, again, this is very important for companies and even for universities here and adult learning. These are skills that we need to look at. Kind of resonates with, and I was very happy, I just visited the future schools downstairs. Very happy to look at some of the skills, actually mirrors what World Economic Forum is saying in terms of skill sets that we require for 2025. And if you look at this, it categorizes them into 15 core skill sets the future generation should have. And out of 15, guess what? About 70% has to do with mindset and critical thinking. 30% is about technology. So the balance now is 70-30 because technology has become so pervasive. Numerous tools out there, numerous applications out there for us to plug and play. It's been simplified. Even now, coding has gone to NCLC, no code, low code sort of environment. So you write a process, the code generates by itself. So that's how fast software engineering is transformed, and we are becoming programmers on the fly. Even young kids now can do coding already. So in that sense, very pleased for NIET. I think you're moving in the right direction. Last point, this is an old model, simple model but very powerful from MIT 1989 by Gordon Davis and friends. It's called technology acceptance. It's been used very widely. I tell my students never use this for your PhD because what more can you add? So you got to look at it from a more different perspective, but they make some important points. Usefulness of technology and simplicity decides on its usage. So for companies, they like this because it's simple. They don't like complex dimensions to look at. And so always tell them when you're working with technology, when you're doing your prototyping, when you're doing your testing, keep the user in mind. So for users, it has to be simple, it has to be useful. Again, as I mentioned, MIT challenges faced by leadership, lacking of strategic thinking, cultural transformation is an issue, human capital management is still a major issue in the tech sector, and last but not least, leaders who by default surround themselves by people who are outdated in terms of their thinking. So, that note, how should leadership respond to the VUCA world that I started in? We need to have clarity of vision, understanding of the market environment, understanding of the pastel factors that I talked about, a commitment to change, to address the complexity, and as a result of having B, U, and C, hopefully we become more agile in business decision making. On that note, what would be some of the future research areas that's interesting? For those of you who are working in education technology, I'm on the editorial board for British Journal of Education Technology. It's a Q1's focused journal, so if you want to get in touch before you send it there, just to get feedback, please contact me. I'm on LinkedIn, and you can get my email from some of your colleagues here, I believe. Yeah? So what would be some of the possible areas of research? Use of BI in SMEs. This is my current project working with the Malaysian government. So how are SMEs using business intelligence for transforming digitally? Yeah? So larger corporations, startups, and how they shape strategic direction. So my focus is on SMEs, try and make them bigger players. Number two, business case for BI, cross-industry comparison, something that's worthy of research. Machine learning AI and its role in advancing BI. So I think from more deep technology perspective, what's the role of machine learning in AI? Design thinking, does it aid BI? So where do we marry and amalgamate design thinking and business intelligence? Last but not least, customer journey mapping, again, from the principles of design. Again, what's the role of artificial intelligence and BI there? Last mile issues with BI, source matters. most companies are still struggling with selecting the right data, asking the right questions. So to win a war, you got to know who the enemy is. To win the war in business, you got to ask the right questions. Am I doing the right thing and why am I doing this? So leadership should actually make that bold decision by asking the right questions. On that note, thank you very much for your time. There's no time for questions, I believe, but you can PM me or private message me or contact, or just see me outside. I believe you had a question. Yeah, we can chat outside. Thank you.
Where's my assignment?
Any questions?
You showed it, but it's like in a very discreet way.
Any questions from Dr. Murli? Thank you, Dr. Murli. So, next in the series of keynote speaker session is from Professor Anna Kowalska-Bizalska. I would like to read her brief introduction. Professor Bizalska, with an MSc in Management and PhD in Electrical Power Systems, has spent 4 years in the power industry, 2006 to 10, and the Habilitation Management Sciences. She possesses unique expertise on the interface of energy markets, management, and economics. Her most recent research interests include the investigation of social acceptance of innovative energy services, such as smart meters or small-scale renewable generations, as well as of alternative fuel vehicles, such as battery and electric ones. Apart from empirical studies, she is keen on modeling on adoption rate and diffusion of innovation by means of agent-based simulation. I would like to invite Professor on this stage.
Does it work? Yes, it works.
Yeah, I thought that's not the project anymore.
Yeah. So let's wait a little bit. It would be nicer to have my presentation on. So maybe in the meantime, before I will start, so today I will talk about the determinants of consumers' acceptance towards alternative fuel vehicles, actually mainly battery electric vehicles and plug-in electric vehicles. And maybe let me explain myself why it's interesting for me. Because as Professor Murali said, to my mind, consumers are actually in the center, in the heart of my research interest, because I do believe that without understanding the consumers' attitudes, consumers' preferences, consumers' willingness to pay, it's really impossible to design a product, design a service in such a way that consumers will be actually willing to buy it. Especially as my research focuses on energy markets and transportation market to some extent, and I focus on sustainability. And in terms of energy research, we all experience something which is called energy transition, meaning that actually we have to adopt to some changes that require significant behavioral change from us, the customers. And now the question is how to achieve such a behavioral change, how to achieve the certain level of acceptance around our customers, such as residential households. And that's why I believe that it's necessary to explore, to investigate the point of view of the customers, because this is the only way that will let the companies, the authorities, the governments, to propose the solutions that can be then accepted and adopted by people. Okay, still my presentation is not there, but there is a chance for, because otherwise I can just continue without, but generally it would be easier to have some colorful background behind me. So let us wait for a second and then...
Continue without.
And yeah, in the worst case, I will just continue without. Oh yes, oh yes. There is a hope for us. Okay, so just let me... Oh, something like this? Control F? Thank you, Rachel. Okay, so this is the topic of my presentation. As you see, again, consumers' acceptance will be in the center of my interest. This is the plan of my presentation, but maybe let us skip it. Why I got interested into this topic. So apart from what I have already said, that consumers are important, that innovations should be also user-centric. Actually, we all know that nowadays transportation is responsible for a large amount of CO2 emissions, right? And also, even 20%, as you may see in the first sentence, of the global energy is consumed by this sector. And when you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, as you might have seen in the presentation of Professor Nouri yesterday, transportation, sustainable transportation, belongs to one of the major points, let's say, areas in which we humans are now interested in. And while talking about sustainable transportation, a lot of attention is paid on the exchange of conventional vehicles into the vehicles that belong to a very broad group called alternative fuel ones, to which following cars belong. So first of all, hybrid electric vehicles, and this is such a kind of vehicle that is, I would say, the closest to the conventional vehicles that we all know. Yeah? So they generally have the typical conventional engine with some, let's say, additional features that allow us to use some electrical power. Plug-in hybrid electric vehicles are a little bit more advanced because we are able to charge them from the socket. And finally, battery electric vehicle, a car where the conventional combustion engine is replaced with the electric one. These are, let's say, the more advanced type of the car. Of course, we may also have fuel cell hydrogen vehicles, but they are still not so common on the roads. Okay, here you see the current distribution of the cars which are being used in European Union, but also in Poland. And what you may see is that actually these yellow colors and orange colors represent the conventional cars. So still, the majority of consumers prefer those cars. But according to the regulations, at least in the European Union, in, let's say, more than one decade, a little bit more, yeah? So starting in 2035, conventional cars will have to be replaced by the battery electric ones. It means that no matter if we like or not, sooner or later we will have to adopt to this new category of cars. How does it look in Poland? In Poland, again, conventional cars, again, please look on this yellow and orange color, dominate, right? So still people, when they have a choice, they prefer to buy conventional cars. Of course, there are a lot of different reasons, among which price is one of the most important, meaning that generally conventional vehicles are simply cheaper than those belonging to the alternative fuel ones. And let us move forward. This topic is actually not completely new. Since at least a decade, many different researchers from very different areas of research tried to investigate the way people observe, people perceive alternative fuel vehicles. Here I just have mentioned a few research topics that are the most common in the literature. So you may see that people are actually, the scientists are actually interested in investigation of consumer preferences. So they want to know what kind of attributes of the cars are the most valuable for the customers that might be interested in buying them. Secondly, researchers try to provide so-called market segmentation of the potential adopters, potential customers. This is like a very common marketing tool. If you are interested in marketing, you must have heard about this, right? So generally, we try to divide the market, our potential customers, into smaller groups based on some attributes, some features that allow us to see the differences between different group of customers. Then willingness to pay. So how much what is our appraisal actually of these new categories of cars? How much we would be willing to pay for them, yes? And our willingness to pay is very closely connected with our appraisal, our evaluation of this good. The more we like this good, the more we believe that it is worth a certain price, the higher is our willingness to pay. But as usually, when we talk about some innovations, we observe some barriers to adoption, meaning that it's not so easy to convince people to stop buying conventional cars and just start buying, let's say, electric ones. There are a lot of different reasons for such situation, but as I said, among most of them, we can mention the price, and also the problems connected with the range of the battery or with limited number of charging stations. Finally, researchers look on the policies which are being imposed in different countries, and they try to evaluate their effectiveness in terms of the adoption of these cars. And now what we have done? Me and my team has received funding from the National Science Center in 2020, if I remember well, for the project called Diffusion of Alternative Fuel Passenger Vehicles in Poland, Empirical Survey of Consumers' Preferences and Agent-Based Modeling. So actually, as you may see, the broad of this project was, the scope of this project was very broad, but our general aim was to investigate and explore consumers' social and technical readiness to adopt alternative fuel vehicles. What were our objectives? First of all, we wanted to evaluate consumers' awareness of these technologies. Based on some other studies, based on some reports, market reports, we suspected that probably the majority of consumers may have some problems with distinguishing different types of the cars between each other. So the general level of knowledge, the general level of awareness could be relatively low. In the second part of the project, we wanted to quantify the consumer's valuation, so let's say willingness to pay, and also preferences of various attributes of alternative fuel vehicles. Why? Because we wanted to recommend the producers of these cars, local authorities and the governments, what kind of marketing strategies are necessary if they really want to convince consumers to switch from conventional vehicles into those modern ones. And finally, we wanted to evaluate various policies and scenarios that are responsible for accelerating, for enhancing the diffusion, so like spreading of this category of cars into the market. Our study, as I said, started in 2020, so we had a lot of time to conduct it, but also the scope of the study was very broad. As you may see, we have divided it into three parts. In the first part, we have focused on examining the knowledge, the willingness to pay, and the awareness of our consumers. And in this part, we have just used a telephone survey by the means of research agency. And of course, we analyzed the data by the typical statistical and econometric tools. In the second part, on which I will focus in a second, we have focused on half of the sample, so like it was equal to 500 participants. And we asked them to participate in an online study in which they had to evaluate different categories, different sets of attributes of alternative fuel vehicles. So generally we have used a tool which is called a coin-join analysis. I will show you what it is in a second. And in the last part of the study, which is actually still going on, we want to check what is the impact of various, we call it external fields. So like you have heard the presentation of Professor Katarzyna Schneidweron yesterday. So you might have noticed that we use different tools like advertisement, educational campaign, governmental policies, so different incentives that can be responsible for the increase of the interest, increase of the engagement, increase of the willingness to pay of the consumers. In this case, in terms of course, alternative fuel vehicles. In our survey, in this large quantitative survey that has been done by the means of the telephone survey, we asked two major questions to our respondents. First, we asked them, what type of a car, with what kind of engine would you like to buy? I must add here that all our participants in the study were recruited under a certain, they must have fulfilled a certain condition. All participants in the survey had declared that they are willing to buy a car in the coming year, meaning that they are actually thinking and looking for a car. Such an assumption has been made because we wanted to talk only with such customers who are really interested in this market in terms of purchasing a certain vehicle. So while just asking our participants a question, what type of a car they want to buy, you may see this yellow color again. Almost 40% of them answered that they want to buy a conventional car. But as we expected such an answer, we add an additional kind of a screening question. What type of alternative fuel vehicle would you prefer if you had to make a choice? So in other words, we just made our respondents to make a choice, even let's say a hypothetical one, if they would be given a choice between three categories of alternative vehicles, like battery one, plug-in, and a hybrid, yes? So even if in reality they wanted to buy a conventional car, here we pressed them, we pushed them to make a hypothetical choice. What we can see is that still, now you have to look on the green and blue and gray colors. This light green color is responsible for plug-ins. So plug-ins have appeared in this answer, and dark blue, the light blue color is responsible for battery electric cars. So okay, when they had to choose one of those alternative fuel vehicles, the hybrids, then the plug-ins, and at the end, battery electric vehicles have been chosen. So generally people were afraid of something which they don't know. And while being pushed to make a choice, they were still trying to choose something that is the closest to what they knew. And in this case, hybrid electric vehicles are the closest to the conventional cars. Now moving to the coin-join analysis. What it is a kind of a survey that is actually based on the utility theory. If you had ever a course of microeconomics, I suppose that you must have heard about utility theory, meaning that we want to, in this case, in my survey, show or find out, explore what attributes would be the most, let's say, valuable for our customers in terms of the utility. So like a level of satisfaction that they can get out of it. So what we have done, based on this large quantitative survey, we have analyzed by the means of some statistical tools what kind of attributes are the most important for the customers who are interested in buying a car. Generally, in this survey, we asked our respondents, what do they think? How important for them is the type of the fuel of the car, the type of the car, is it a large or a small car, family car, or just a very tiny one? What do they think about the charging? Access to the charging stations important for them or not? Think about the brand while making a decision. Is brand the most important feature or maybe not? What do they think about the price? So generally, as you see on the plot here, we have taken several attributes which can be understood as decision-making factors while deciding for buying a car, right? And then we have asked our respondents to evaluate how important they are for them on a Likert scale, from 1 meaning it's completely not important to 5 meaning it is very, very important, right? What we have seen is that actually these features, which I have marked with green color, namely safety, charging, range, and the price, have occurred to be the most important for our respondents. We were surprised to see that the brand was not included as one of the very important factors, but this is what we have observed. So what we have done later on, we have taken these most important factors and we have designed a set of, you can imagine like cards that were displayed on the screen for our respondents. On each screen, they had to evaluate how willing they would be to buy a certain car with a certain set of features. So in total, we had taken 5 attributes for each type of a car: electric, hybrid, and plug-in. 3 features, 3 attributes were common for all types of the cars: safety, purchase, and the access to the service. And then for the hybrid, additionally, we have taken into account the functionality level and the type of the car. And for plug-ins and battery electric vehicles, of course, we must have taken into account the range of the battery and access to charging. And now imagine, we have 5 attributes, right? Each attribute had 5 different levels. For example, a very low price, medium price, and then higher level of the price. So it could give us a high number of different combinations. We wouldn't be able to choose. And in that case, we have to use, again, a kind of statistical tool that allows us just to choose the most statistically significant combinations of these attributes. So in the end, we got 6 different conjoint scenarios, 1 for each type of the car, and 1 for each type of the purchase, because we also asked our respondents whether they want to buy a car, buy a cash, or by means of a bank loan, or they are rather interested in leasing. Yeah? So we accepted 2 different types of purchasing the car. So this is the example. Imagine that you are one of the respondents, you are sitting in front of the screen, and in the first question you have to say, from 3 different alternative fuel vehicles, battery electric vehicle, hybrid, and plug-in, what would you like to choose? And you are, for example, choosing the hybrid electric vehicles. In the second question, you would be asked, do you prefer to purchase such a car or just lease it? Yes? Let's say we are deciding for purchasing it. And then you would see 25, like this one, sets of features of these hybrid electric vehicles with different level of the attributes. And each time you would see a question, would you like to buy a hybrid car with the following features? And then on the Likert scale, with 7 different levels, you would decide how probable is that you would like to buy such a car. Definitely not, probably not, rarely, rather yes, or definitely yes. Yes? So this is how we have done it. And at the end, we have obtained a lot of data with so-called partial utilities. So we have been able to observe what was the level of satisfaction of our respondents for a given set of attributes for a given type of a car. And now going to the conclusions. For those of the respondents who have decided for the purchase of the car, dependent on the type of the car, you might see that price, in each case, a part of the battery electric vehicles, have occurred to be very, very important. But in the battery electric vehicles, which are here, safety has occurred to be even more important than the price. It was something that was very surprising for us, but it was probably because the time when the study has been conducted, when a lot of news were actually spread that some of battery electric cars had got burned, for example, somewhere in the road, and people start to be a little bit afraid of them. A part of the price and the safety, we may also see that when we talk about the hybrids, which are here, the car type, then the functionality level and the access to the service are the most important. For the plug-ins and battery electric vehicles, a part of the price and safety, we also see the range of the battery, access to the service, and access to the charging stations. Here below you see similar results, but for those of the respondents who have chosen leasing instead of the price. And actually you may see that the schedule, yes, of the ranking of the attributes is actually identical. Just the numbers are a little bit different. But generally the same attributes were similarly important to the whole group of our respondents. And finally, what we have observed is still alternative fuel vehicles are not extremely popular, especially in the country as ours, in Poland. But when we observe that there is a small increase in the interest of the consumers on a yearly basis. From the features that has to be taken into account by the producers of the cars, by the authorities that promote sustainable transportation, price and safety have occurred to be really important, as well as access to service and charging stations. Of course, it is like a general observation that consumers also need stable regulations. In Poland, we have some issues with this in the area of alternative fuel vehicles. So stable regulations, stable market rules are very important whenever consumers decide for a certain innovation. And finally, if you got interested in this area, here is the list of our papers that we have published regarding this project. On my LinkedIn account, you can also see the paper in which we present the results of the control analysis. So if you want to learn about some technical details, how such an analysis can be done, and you are interested in more results, I encourage you to have a look, because this paper is uploaded there and you can just download it very easy. Finally, if you have any questions, you can also send an email to me or find my name on the LinkedIn account. Thank you very much for your attention. Any questions now, or probably you are tired already? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Anna. So that is the final keynote speaker session. Our chief guest for the valedictory session is in the way to auditorium. Within a couple of minutes, they are reaching to auditorium, and we will start the valedictory session. Hello.
Hello.
हेलो हेलो मुझे थोड़ी गेन और वॉल्यूम दे दीजिएगा डाइस के माइक पे इस पे हेलो हेलो
When I finish, I ask if because I have no Wi-Fi, so I don't know how to do it.
Lights on. It's running. फटाफट एक्टिव हो जाओ मन करो
Hi. How are you?
Okay. Hey, buddy, how are you? Hi.
I request the delegates to please come on the stage. We'll start by the on the stage. Yes, ma'am. DG sir, director sir.
अभी बात कर लेंगे
So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you on the valedictory session of this EmergIN 2023 International Conference on Emerging Technologies and Innovations. Honorable Chief Guest of the day, Dr. Nima Agarwal, Additional Managing Director of NIET. Guest of honor, Dr. Murli Raman, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Asia Pacific University, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Guest of honor, Professor Anna Kowalska-Pizalska, Wrocław University of Science and Technology. Guest of honor, Professor Rafael Veron, Wrocław University of Science and Technology. Professor Katarzyna Schneid-Veron, Wrocław University of Science and Technology. Professor Noor Al-Gendi, Environmental Biotechnology Professor from Egyptian Petroleum Research Institute. Dr. Yash Chawla, ETBI Series General Chair. Executive Vice President of NIET, Mr. Raman Batra. Director General of NIET, Mr. Praveen Soneja. Director NIET, Dr. Vinod M. Kapse. Dr. Kumud Saxena, Convener of the EmergIN 2023. Dean Admin, Dr. D.R. Somashekar. All Deans, Associate Deans, Head of Departments, Deputy Heads, Faculty Members, staff, researchers, participants, and beloved students. Once again, I welcome you in this valedictory ceremony of EmergIN 2023. Starting with the program, I would like to request to felicitate our guests. Starting with our chief guest, I would like to request EVP sir to kindly felicitate Dr. Neema Agarwal. I would like to request EVP sir to kindly greet Dr. Murali Raman, Deputy Vice Chancellor of Asia Pacific University, Malaysia. I would request Director General sir to kindly greet Professor Anna Pizalska. DG sir is requested to greet Professor Rafal Veron. Professor Rafal. Director sir is requested to kindly greet Katarzyna Schneid-Veron. Director sir is requested to kindly greet Dr. Noor Algeni. Sir, please greet our EVP sir. Thank you very much all. Cheers. So, I would like to request Director sir to kindly address the audience.
So good evening to all. So we are here for the valedictory function of this important conference on conference on emerging technology and innovation, EmergIN 2023. So chief guest of today's function, Dr. Neema Agarwal, Additional Managing Director, NIET, and Professor and Head in Radiology Department, Government Institute of Medical Science, Greater Noida. Executive Vice President, Shri Raman Batra sir. Guest of Honor, Dr. Murali Raman, Professor and Deputy Vice Chancellor, Asia Pacific University, Malaysia. Guest of Honor, Professor Rafal Veron, Head of the Department of Operation Research and Business Intelligence, Wrocław University of Science and Technology, Poland. Guest of Honor, Professor Anna, Wrocław University of Science and Technology, Poland. Guest of Honor, Dr. Dimitros, Wrocław University of Science and Technology, Poland. Professor Katarzyna and Professor Noor. Dr. Yash Chawla, Assistant Professor and General Chair of International Conference. Dr. Kumit Saxena, Convener of this particular conference. Director General, Shri Praveen Sonijaji. Dean Admin, Dr. Som Shekhar. All the eminent speaker, session chair, guests, directors, registrars, deans, department heads, faculty members, and dear students. It's my pleasure to welcome the chief guest of today's valedictory function, Dr. Neema Agarwal ma'am. For your gracious presence, very down-to-earth, inspiring personality with a wonderful quality of empathy. Welcome, ma'am. It is a great honor for all of us to have Dr. Murali Raman, Professor Rafal Veron, Dr. Dimitros, Professor Anna, Katarzyna, and Professor Noor as a guest of honor for this particular function. So we are immensely thankful to you for your gracious presence. So I am happy to welcome Executive Vice President Sri Raman Batra sir, visionary personality, man behind the success of NIET. Thank you sir for your continuous support to make this particular conference grand success. It's my pleasure to welcome all the eminent speakers, session chairs, guests, Director General, directors, registrar, deans, head of the departments, faculty members, researchers, and students. students. I cannot say how happy and privileged I am to be part of this particular conference on this particular international conference on emerging technologies and innovation, that is EmergIN 2023, hosted by NIET in association with Wrocław University of Science and Technology, Poland, supported by ICT Academy. So I am happy to share that more than 220 papers were received for this particular conference, and out of these 220, 107 quality papers were selected after the rigorous review process, and total 106 papers are presented in a hybrid mode by the young researchers. Total 15 sessions in 5 different tracks were presented. 4 informative talks by the eminent speaker or experts enlighten the different aspects of emerging technology, which will be very useful for the young researchers to carry out their further research. The interaction which is taken place in these 2 days will be very helpful to give new direction to the young researchers. So on this occasion, I would like to thank all the session chairs for sparing their valuable time to make this particular conference very successful. I also take this opportunity to congratulate the entire organizing team, especially Dr. Kumud Saxena, Dr. Priyanka Chandani, Dr. Pawan Shukla, Dr. Sonia Munjal, Dr. Rashmi Mishra, Dr. Manish Kaushik, Dr. Vivek, Dr. Hitesh Harsh Avasthi for the successful organization of this conference. I want to congratulate all the authors of the paper, especially who have been selected as the best paper. So once again, I extend a hearty welcome to all the present over here. Thank you one and all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now I would like to request Dr. Kumud Saxena to kindly present the report of the conference EmergIN 2023.
Thank you. A very good evening, everyone. So here we are to say the celebration of our international conference that was conducted for the 2 days. The event went very well, as we were expecting not such a good number of papers to be given for the conference, but we got a very good response for that. Not only from India, from outside India also we received many papers, and after reviewing those papers, we had a good committee of intellectual people who were sitting there to review the papers. So there were various committees being formed to conduct this event. So the first thing we started with was the task division of the international conference, and based on that we had multiple committees who started working on that. So we had registration committee headed by Dr. Bhavna Vadva. They did a very good job. Within 2 days we didn't had any issue of any misguidance or any sort of connection where people were saying that we have registered and we haven't got the response or we haven't got the kit. Everything went very smoothly. So kudos to Dr. Bhavna Ma'am's team. Next was Mr. Mayank Khare, who was handling the media and marketing of the international conference. And not for only for these 2 days, for the last 3 months, he had a very good working on the websites, on the social media, and I'm happy to announce that on a single website we got more than 90,000 plus click, and people were visiting our website to check the content. So happy to say that Mr. Mayank has managed it very well. So his team, I'm sorry that I'm not taking all the team members' name, but your head in charge means your whole team is being appreciated for that. Next was the IT team, Mr. Vimal sir and Mr. Sunil Pandey. They were taking care of the management during the session, and all things went very well because it was a hybrid mode conference where people were connecting online and session chair was connecting online. One was being present there physically. So it was being maintained very well, and we didn't had any glitch of net issue or any sort of connectivity issue. It went very well. So all the team members who were present there, so was Garima ma'am, Vikas sir, Sushi ma'am, thank you everyone. Then we had the review committee headed by Dr. Rashmi Mishra. It was a tedious task, having 220 plus papers and identifying the best papers among them was a tedious task. It was a blind review. Blind review means The reviewer was not knowing the paper belongs to whom. The author name was not disclosed. They were reviewing the paper and then they were giving their comments. So it took too many days to review 220 papers, but it was a nice attempt and we were able to identify 107 papers which were selected and the mail was being shot. And thanks to Dr. Rashmi Mishra team who did it very well. Then the next task started was by Dr. Navneet, who started working on the proceedings, though he was not well for a duration. So we prayed for his good health also. And his team was working very well behind us also. And they were able to get the proceeding on time. That has been inaugurated yesterday itself. So that was a good event from his team. Thank you to Dr. Navneet and his team members. Next we had the designing team headed by Dr. Shahid Hitesh. They worked very well. Multiple times we were updating the design and the brochures were being designed again and again. But they did well and all the banners, standees that were there, the pictures, the photographs collection, everything was maintained very well. So thank you, sir. Then as I said, the registration committee, that there were no loopholes, that people were not complaining that we have done the registration and we haven't got the response for that. So thanks to Sanjeev sir and Miss Aditi, that they were coordinating so well. The day people were transferring the amount, the very same day we were getting the status that the amount has been paid and the acknowledgement was given to the authors. So that was an excellent job done by the team. Then we have the hospitality team, reception team headed by Mr. Sanjay Kumar and Mr. Amit Yadav. I should say that no one was empty stomach and everything went very well because no one would have worked out if we haven't got good food to eat. So thanks for your team for good management. Then we have the team, everything that was being maintained by the welcome committee, the session chairs who were being welcomed here, because that is the first impression makes the impression of the college. So when they enter the college and the hospitality they are given, that has to be a good one. So it was headed by Dr. Pavan Shukla and his team was continuously present there in the boardroom, and there were the very good coordination between the boardroom and the session being managed by by Dr. Sonia Munjal ma'am, that everything went very smoothly. They were there when they used to enter the session room. Everything was managed, and I should say that each and every session chair has appreciated and they said that we can understand why people love to work in a private college. So that was an achievement for our college also. Then we had everything that was being managed for the vouchers, the chief guest prizes, gifts and everything was managed by Mr. Amit Yadav. Thanks to him, he was doing everything on time basis, timely basis, and he used to get everything on time wherever it was required. Then the international collaboration, we were having multiple session chairs from international universities, as well as we had good team being sitting here. So Dr. Priyanka Chandani was coordinating, thanks to her and her team who coordinated so well so that everything went very smoothly. Then our inaugural and the valedictory function that is being held, and yesterday Cultural Eve, which was held very beautifully, and I can think that everyone was enjoying yesterday's Cultural Eve. So thanks to our DSW team headed by Dr. Manish Kaushik. He always proves that I am the best and I can do the best. And the decoration that you can see outside that depicts the Indian culture, that is also being done by our students only. They were not sleeping for two nights and they were decorating it beautifully so that you all can see that culture outside. Thanks to your team, Manish sir and Kanika ma'am. The very well managed stage was being done by Dr. Harsh Awasthi. Though he is not in front anywhere when the conduction is being done, but whenever we see the best has to be shown, then Dr. Harsh Awasthi is there on stage to show the best of NIET. Thank you, Dr. Harsh Awasthi, sir. So moving on to these sessions, that was the core part of our whole conference. Thanks to Dr. Sonia Munjal ma'am. I can't find ma'am sitting here. Okay. So her team has done an excellent job. We had, coming to the main part of our conference, we had 15 sessions. We planned to have only 4 tracks in our conference. First track was based on the electric vehicle and IoT. Second was based on emerging technologies. Third was based on emerging technologies in AI ML for sustainability growth. And the fourth one was based on the management practices and BI. But when we received overwhelming response for the papers, we had to make one more track, and we made that track on blockchain and cyber security. But after that also we were not able to manage all the papers. Then we planned to have parallel sessions being run for the same track. Based on that, we planned about 10 sessions. Again, seeing the responses, we have to move on to 15 sessions. And that was the achievement of the conference. Having 15 sessions in a conference with 107 papers, that was really an achievement for an international conference. These tracks were, as we were planning for 5 tracks, so we have connected with industry experts, academicians from all over the world to get the paper presentation being judged. So I'm happy to announce from here, not only the academician, we had industry experts from the good industry who were there to manage the sessions. Like if we talk about the university, from Ajman University, from lady from Nigeria, Shweta Srivastav, she is CEO of a company. Then from Australia, we have a person who had a startup in Australia, Mr. Manish Gupta. He was there to session the chair. Then we have person from VIT, then from the government university, Shiksha Sansthan, VIIT Pune, then NIET Assam, then from DCUT, I'm not remembering that exactly, Murtal. So there were multiple people from the government university as well as international session chairs. Then we have people from private also as well as from MET, JP, then Global Logic, we had Sridharan with us who was chairing that session. Then we have people from Infosys, TCS and Capgemini. And everyone appreciated the sessions. Even we have got the suggestions that the papers that were being presented by the students, they wanted to take them one step ahead by providing them the ways by which they can commercialize that paper or can connect with the industry and take it on a higher level. So again, I request my students who have presented the papers, kindly connect with us so that we can take those papers on a higher level also. So the sessions were being managed very well. The coordinators who were managing that session was very well coordinated. Thanks to all the team members who were there. So the final gist was that we were able to present around about 106 papers in this conference, and 11 papers were presented online, and the rest of the papers were presented in offline mode. So the next outcome that we want to get from this conference is to have multiple work being done so that there is really the achievement of the conference, that if we are able to connect with the academicians and the industry experts who have sessioned your chair, and they could guide you more about what further you can do with your papers. So the last line that I would like to say is, if people are doubting how far you can go so far that you can't hear them anymore. So I request everyone, remember that and go ahead with your statements. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kumud Saxena. Now I would like to request our guest of honor, Dr. Murali Raman, Deputy Vice Chancellor of Asia Pacific University, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, to say a few words.
Thank you, Honorable Masters, distinguished and respected leaders, my fellow colleagues from Poland. Do I say Poland or India? Egypt. Yeah. So, firstly, thank you for this honor of saying a few words. Some of them said I should sing it in song. I think songs are for specific events, so I rather speak what I feel at this moment. Firstly, I would like to thank the institution for inviting me here. I think we have an MOU that's already growing, and I think this marks the very first stamp of future collaborative activities between our institutions. I think there's so much that NIET has to offer, and I think in many, many different ways, Asia Pacific University and your university, Sir Raman and Dr. Agarwal, we are on a similar journey. So I guess there's a lot more that we can do together. And this morning I was very privileged to visit this future school for future skills, yeah? And at the heart of the school for future skills is actually the design philosophy. I'm a design thinker at heart, as I mentioned in my work with Stanford University, which is still ongoing as an adjunct faculty fellow there as well, as part of their ideas and School of Design programs. So it's really nice to see that we are trying to cultivate the whole attitude of innovation and the whole culture of creativity at a very young age. I think it's very, very important. And in my keynote earlier, I did say that we are living in a very complex world today. The world is no longer stable anymore, like it or not, yeah? For better, for worse. It's a very complex, very fast-moving world. And this complex world requires swift solutions that are simple. With complex problems, the simpler the solutions, the better, because it makes the most impact to society. So thrilled that NIET is moving in that direction of design, moving the direction of creativity to nurture the young minds. I just want to show of hands. How many of you here are students?
Just
Okay.
raise your hands up.
Thank you. Were you all, how many of you are students who did write a paper for this conference? Excellent. Congratulations. You deserve a big hand. So I believe these are budding academics for India and for Greater Noida. Remember that at the end of every conference marks the beginning of your next journey. What do I do with this paper? How do I connect with the minds here? And how do I connect with the fellow professors who may have been involved in the paper to take it to the next level? So the end of a conference marks the beginning of the paper for a much more productive purpose, be it for commercial reasons or be it for greater publication output and impact. So think about that, dear students. And last but not least, to the academics, a wise man once said, the end of education is character. I repeat, the end of education is character. And as academics, I think it's our duty to actually nurture minds and produce students of higher order character. Because they might be very brilliant, but if they don't have the basic character to support humanity and what the world requires, this complex world requires, I think we would have failed our duties as academics. So be bold, be brave, and inspire the young minds, make them brilliant, not only academically, but more importantly, as a perfect human being with strong character attributes to ensure that they can contribute and give back to society. On that note, namaste, thank you. Do I say Shukriya or Dhanyavad? And in my mother tongue, Nandri Vanakkam. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Murali Raman. Now, I would like to invite our benevolent Additional Managing Director, Dr. Nima Agarwal, the Chief Guest of today's valedictory session, for her address.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Kapse and Dr. Kumud, for having me over for the valedictory function. It's indeed a great pleasure to be amongst such a plethora of academicians and industrial experts here, and I feel that it's a proud privilege. So I must congratulate the organizing team, the entire organizing team, for this two-day event. I think that it is one of its kind in the history of NIET. The journey that I have witnessed so far, so I think it's one of its kind. It's really unique, and I must say that firstly it is unique because you had people, you had experts coming from far and wide, not only from pan-India, but from abroad, from Poland, Egypt, and Malaysia. So that enriched your academic capital. Once they were here, they could add a lot more than otherwise you would have got. So I think that's one of the one of the reasons for it to be unique. Another reason that I find it to be unique is that you had a perfect recipe. Actually, the organizing committee had a perfect recipe. They had researchers who had their research work, who could guide, who could tell from their experience what's going on in the academic world. Then there were experts from industry who could really tell what are the practical implications of all the innovations that are happening. And so a perfect concoction was prepared that, I think, as Murli sir said, could provide simple solutions to complex problems. And I think for an institute like ours, it's certainly a boon. Thirdly, it was unique because it was in the hybrid mode. This was the very first at an IIT of such kind. It was unique because it was the first time that we received so many papers, more than 200, and out of which 107 were selected and presented. So it is definitely unique. And also, of all the things that happened, I think all of us had a great time at NIET during these 2 days. So again, it was a very, very pleasurable experience. So I once again congratulate the organizing team for their efforts. You have certainly raised the bar at NIET. Now all the future events have to take cognizance of this event. So I think, thank you for doing that. And thank you for having me over once again. Thank you.
So now we will start for the felicitation of the best paper. Before that, I would like to request our chief guest to kindly present the memento to today's keynote speakers. I would like to request Madam to kindly present the memento to Dr. Murali Raman. Ma'am, please present memento to Professor Anna Kowalska-Pizalska. Professor Rafal is kindly requested to receive the memento. So now it's the time which it's the time for which we were waiting for the presenters. So we have got 7 best paper awards here. 2 papers have been selected in track 1 and 2 papers again in track 2, and track 3, track 4 and track 5 are having 1 best paper award. Means track 1 and track 2 are having a tie. So calling for the paper in the track 1, that is Advanced Computational and Communication Paradigms, 2 winners are there. First paper goes to Controlling Computer Through Virtual Mouse Using Hand Gestures by Amegha Singh, Anshu, Yagita Kumari, Mohammad Sharik and Dr. Kumud Saxena. Please come on this stage.
Come on, no one is there.
Again from the same track, the best paper, the second best paper. The second best paper goes to the paper on the title Modeling and Simulation of High Frequency Antenna with Amplifiers by the writers Dr. Pavan Kumar Shukla, Dr. Prasanna Kumar Singh, Mohammad Kaif, Mohit Singh, Manita and Shiv Saxena. Dr. Pavan Kumar Shukla. Again, there was a tie for the track 2 and track 2 was emerging technologies. So the first paper goes to Is the Metaverse Going to be a Threat? A Quantitative Study on Indian Population by Sheikh Shamim, Kartika Singh, Ayush Srivastav, Ms. Garima Jain, Shreyans and Usama Sati. Please come on the stage. Your good name is? Ayush Srivastav. Next paper under the same track, Emerging Technologies, goes to for the title Sustainable Smart Pot Retrofitting Systems by Professor Mayank Khare, Prashant Pandey, Rajneesh Kumar Rai and Ahmed Maaz.
Students are not present.
For the track 3, that is Emerging Trends for Transformation Management Practices, the best paper goes to the paper titled The Analysis of Stock Market Trends Using the K Nearest Neighbor KNN Algorithms by Jitendra Chaurasia, Vikas Sagar and Amarpal Yadav. For the track number 4, that is Emerging Technologies in AI/ML for Sustainable Growth, the best paper award is given to the paper titled A Survey on IoT-Based Hydroponic Farming. Again goes to Prashant Kumar Singh, Amiya Krishna Gupta, Purvi Gupta. Again I said for Mayangdeep Khare. Last but not the least, for the track number 5, that is Innovative Technologies in Cyber Security and Blockchain. The best paper award goes to the paper titled An Efficient Chaotic-Based Color Image Encryption Scheme by Naman Baranwal, Rahul Kumar Sharma, Vivek Kumar Sharma, Kedar Nath Singh and Sabir Ali. Your good name please, buddy? Naman Baranwal.
Naman.
Kedar Nath Singh. Mr. Kedar Nath Singh, please join. You can all please take your seats. Now, I would like to request Dr. Yash Chawla to take the mic.
Thank you. Thank you for amazing 2 days. I had two small things to do. One was first to thank you all first for participating in this conference, for NIET and the management to host the conference, or to felicitate, or to do the whole programs and arranging everything. Of course, Kumudji, Vivekji, and Hiteshji, we have been in touch for a few months, I mentioned yesterday, so thank you for all your efforts, including all the other faculty members as well. So from our side, I would request our team from Ratsov University of Science and Technology to present a small memento to our dignitaries from NIET. I would also request Kumudji to come on stage with them to receive the memento, please. There is one other small thing that I would like to mention to all of you. We have a very humble person among us. He has helped us a lot for this whole ETBI series I was mentioning yesterday. We started about almost 3 weeks ago, 2.5, 3 weeks ago in Chennai. And this is the 6th place that we have been at, and tomorrow would be our final event under the ETBI series. So we would also like to present a token of appreciation to that person in front of this wonderful audience. So Akshat, if you could please come on stage. Our ETBI series has a lot to thank Akshat for, because he has worked tirelessly, even coordinating with your institution or other institutions. So I would request all the dignitaries on stage to please present him with a memento. So thank you once again, and hope to see you all maybe in Poland or maybe somewhere in India or maybe in NIET next year. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yash, the ETBI seduce team from the Poland, from the Warsaw University, Dr. Noor, Dr. Murli, our guests, management, all the researchers, participants, organizing committee. I thank you really very much from my core of heart. One information is there that the certificate distribution for the organizing committee would be done later in the boardroom. So that's my formal thank you to everybody. I didn't prepare my vote of thanks note. So now I would like to request everybody to rise at a place for the national anthem. जन मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा सब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाए तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे. Thank you very much once again, one and all. We request the people on the stage for a group photograph. Camera is there? Please come in front of the stage for a group photograph.